Well, Coach, my name's Brad Willis, and I'm the executive director of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame in Nashville. And I wanted to reach out to you personally and let you know that our board of directors is in the process of announcing our Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame class of 2023. And when we got together in January and went through our list of nominees, yours is a name that came up early and often, and I'm pleased to be able to tell you that you've been selected to be honored as part of our Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame class of 2023 for all the things that you did throughout your career, both in coaching and administration, and clearly with an emphasis on your time there at East Tennessee State University. We're just thrilled that you're a part of this group and think you're incredibly deserving. And I wanted to reach out to you directly and let you know the news, and just to tell you personally, congratulations. And we're thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you very, very much. I'm very honored of this opportunity of going into the Hall of Fame. Very honored. I spent 5 of the greatest years of my life up there in Johnson City, Tennessee. And just not just the sports and all, but just the people. And my wife and I have been there a couple of years, and she said, Les, she said, this place is the nearest, the people are the nearest to being like where we grew up and born and raised in Charleston, West Virginia. And they're great people, and made things even better.
Well, 81 wins in 5 years and 2 SoCon tournament titles. And that means 2 trips to the NCAA tournament. I mean, that was a good time. I mean, you turned that program around, Coach.
No, I didn't. A guy named 5'7", guy 5'7", is the one that turned it around. Mr. Jennings. I recruited him. Now I'll take credit for that. I had been told about him up in Virginia, Culpeper, and there was an alumnus there at East Tennessee State that used to, he actually wasn't an alumnus, he was just a local guy, and his name was Howard Johnson, and he kept bringing me information about this kid up there. His daughter lived in this town up there in Virginia, and he just kept telling me about him. One night I was going off the court after a game, and he handed me a bunch of papers about this kid named Jennings in the DC area, and it's my favorite recruiting story everywhere I've been, 3 schools. But anyhow, I give the paper. I said, one of my assistants, Dave Henderson, was going to D.C. area the next day, recruiting Virginia, D.C. I said, Dave, you're going up this way this week. I said, I want you to try to go by and see this guy play or whatever. He said, okay, Coach. I gave him all the papers. He came back, and he said, just like that, he said, Coach, you can handle the ball and do this. But Dave Hanners hadn't coached at the Citadel I had. He said, but he's just 5'7", Coach. I said, okay. I sent the other assistant up, Alan LaForce, who later became the head coach. Great coach, great evaluator of talent, but he hadn't coached at the Citadel. He goes up there, comes back, says the same thing. Said he handles the ball well. I go up with my brother, who was a basketball guy. Now he was the director of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission over America, over all the water in America, but he knew more about basketball than I did water. And he went to the game with me. I stayed with him up there. He lived there in the D.C. area. We went to the game. We watched about a quarter, and he said, what do you think? I said, we're taking him. He said, you're taking that little guy? I said, yeah. Well, in a few years, those 3 guys didn't want to hear anything from me about Mr. Jennings, and the rest is history. I didn't mention another player that I can't leave this show without mentioning, Greg Dennis. He not only is a great player and all that, he's had an outstanding career, but his recruitment was very unusual too. 2 or 3 people had told me about him, but he was from my hometown, Charleston, West Virginia. Played high school there, and so my assistant finally, got me to go up there to see him. I stayed with my parents, and my dad went to the game with me. He was a real basketball guy. He ran a tournament that the greatest players in the country played in the spring. Oscar Robertson, Jerry West all played in the spring when they were in the NBA. But anyhow, just letting you know, he knew basketball. But all 3 of them, said the same thing about him, but not about Greg, but he did that night. the other was Mr. Jennings I told you about. But this is Greg Dennis. He and I go to the game, and he pointed out something. We're looking at the program, and he in Charleston, West Virginia, and he said, Les, I've never seen this before in program. And I said, what? We're on the front row and they're warming up. He said, they say he's 6'5" in the program. And he said, that guy's 6'9" you're looking at. And he had never seen, he said, usually they put 6'8" and he's 6'6" or 6'5", players are. He'd followed that for 30 years. Anyhow, I later learned, talking to the coach, that they did the heights and weights and everything in September, and that's what they put out for the heights and weights. And between then and when we were there at the game in February or March, he had grown 5 or 6 inches. During the winter, he grew. It's a crazy story. I mean, my dad saw the program and said, I've never seen them put like height too short. He said they always put it much taller than they are, but not shorter. That's why I remember it's the only time he had ever seen that in his life. He said, you got to wish it on the front row. He's warming up right here. And but the other part of the story is I go to recruiting, and I'm sitting there talking with mother. We're talking about everything, you know. And he's just asking all the questions. She said, Coach, I understand you're from St. Albans. And two things that made this recruiting thing unbelievable. I said, yes, that's where I live. St. Albans is about 8 miles away. But I said, I was born right. We're looking down into Charleston. They had a porch out there. You could see down into the city of Charleston on a mountain up there. And they lived right in Charleston. I said, I was born down there. And she said, what hospital? And I told her the hospital. She said, you were born there? She said, yes. I said, I'm a nurse there. It doesn't get any better than that. You recruit a kid and you were born in a hospital where his mother is the nurse at McMillan Hospital. That was the first part of it. Made it a great recruiting story. But then the next one said, well, she said, you at St. Albans, said you were there in the 50s and graduate. Said, did you ever know a Frank Roy? And I said, yes. I said, how you know him? She said, he's my first cousin. Well, Frank Roy had been my best friend since 6th or 7th grade. We played basketball together, played everything. He ended up later playing in the NFL, but he was a great basketball player, football player. We played everything together, and even double dated to prom. His wife, Adelaide, and my wife double dated, went to prom, and so I know him very well. But I didn't want to tell her all of what I just told you. It sounded like a baloney. And I said, do you ever talk to Frank? She said, yeah, in a couple of weeks. I said, will you just tell him that Les Robinson said hello? And I didn't tell him I was a coach or anything like that. Tell her you met me. She calls me in about a few days. She said, Coach Robinson, you were his best friend in high school. It's over. I've got her son now. Frank Roy, her cousin, gave me the best build-up he could give. He played in the NFL. And we were in our 50th class reunion together. That's how close we were. In Charleston, West Virginia is where they held it.
Wow.
And we had the largest class in the state. And what's really funny is I was sitting there with my wife, 4 or 5 other couples, Frank and his wife. This lady came to me and said, Coach, one of our classmates said, Coach, why don't you come over and see? They had about 30, a bunch of papers over there, our school newspaper, a bunch of others on this long table in this Marriott downtown Charleston. And she takes me over this newspaper of our school newspaper, the Simmerings it was called. And our senior year, the last month, they had what we're going to do. It's called something, but what you're going to do in life. And each senior had, I want to be this, I want to be and mine had Les Robinson want to be a college basketball coach. And I was a head coach at North Carolina State at the time. She wanted me to go see that. And the real funny part of it is, two funny parts. I said, I looked up Frank Roy's, and his was, Frank Roy going to play in the NBA. He loved basketball, probably more football. And then hers, she would let me, I said, no, I'm looking. She said, I'm against you want to be a housewife. Back then, girls didn't have careers, and she didn't want me to see that. This is 50 years later. I want to be a housewife. I said, oh, you've done well as a housewife. And back then, that's what they said. But anyhow, Frank Roy playing the NBA. I went back to the table. We're all sitting there talking and everything. I said, I have to tell you, I went over and looked through the newspapers, and y'all don't know this, but Frank Roy is a failure. He had started 10 years in the NFL. And they said, why? I said, when he graduated from high school, he said, I'm going to play in the NBA. I said, he played in the damn NFL. That's a pretty good story, isn't it?
That's great, Coach. Well, we're super excited that you're part of this class. I know that the folks that we talked to that were on our East Tennessee board were very set on your name being considered, and really pushed for your candidacy. And so we, like I said, we go through a process that and East Tennessee is a very competitive process. There's a lot of universities and schools that are considered there. But the folks that we have out in the Tri-Cities area really said, hey, Coach Les Robinson deserves this honor. So we're really thrilled that you're part of this class. And I just wanted to reach out to you today personally and say congratulations, Coach.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. I'm very honored, and thank you very much.